Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how you can build an app in SwiftUI. Now if you don't know anything about Swift, I recommend going ahead and watching the video I did on Swift Basics. I can link it above and can check that one out because I'm going to assume you have some basic understanding of Swift. Maybe you've done some UI kit work, maybe you've even done some SwiftUI, but you're just kind of curious, how would I build my own contacts app? So if you're ready, and you already kind of have that foundation, let's get started. So this is the app that we're going to build. This is the contacts. You can see you have the name. This is like a little reminder of, maybe where you met that person. So if you see them again, can bring up like, oh, I met this person at a bar in San Francisco. So you can also see that they have their phone number. It's formatted and it's also colored in blue. If you run this on an actual device, you can actually call this number. It is a link that is used, and we'll fill that out in the project and can test it on a real device. Unfortunately, not going to work on a simulator. Next, if you have the plus button, you can actually add new contacts. So if we do a test contact, here you can see that there is this little flag. So if you click on the flag, you can actually see all the different country codes that you can use. And we're just going to stick with United States for now, but I'll show you how to integrate this. It's actually a third-party library that will be integrating through the Swift Package Manager. So if I just do an example, 888, 888, 8888, reminder, this is a test I met. Go ahead and save our contact, and we can see it gets saved, added to the bottom, and you can also edit this. So any contact that you create can also slide, delete it away. We also add the edit button in to where you can just click that. If you want to click the little minuses, can delete it that way as well. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. So open up Xcode, and if you haven't already, create a new project. And when you do that, it'll pull up this window. So this will be, we're going to use an app, iOS, hit next, call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it contacts, hit next, and I will save it on the desktop. Since I already have one there, I'll just go ahead and replace it. And now we've created our app. So let's build, make sure everything's working okay. And right now it automatically defaults to me to an iPod Touch. I prefer to use iPhone 12. So I'll hit resume. This over here, if you haven't used SwiftUI in Xcode yet, is the canvas. So it's basically showing you updates when you make changes. So you can see over here, we kind of have this template code, the hello world, but instead if you change that, just say hello, you can see it actually updates in the preview in the canvas. So let's go ahead and get started. Just to give kind of an overview of what we're going to do, we're going to build out kind of templates for our views and then actually build out our contact model. So giving people the ID for a contact, name, phone, reminder, things like that. But just to start, if you haven't really used SwiftUI before, let's just kind of get an idea of things you can do. So first, we'll just create a contacts variable, and I'm just going to make this an array of strings. So we'll say Bob, Jen, Jeff, and Sarah. And then we're just going to print this stuff out. So you may have noticed when we built or when I showed you the contacts demo, there was kind of the navigation view. So we had that big contacts, and you get that through implementing navigation view. So simply call navigation view, this one here, open up a bracket. We are going to use a form and a for each to display our content. So we'll use form and then for each. If you don't know what for each is, very similar to a for loop. We're going to use it to loop through all of our contacts and display each name in its own row. So we'll do contacts. And with the for each, you need to be able to identify your contact for SwiftUI to actually build it. So we give it an ID, and it's just going to be self. And for this purpose, we're just going to use text, just kind of give you an example of how this list is going to look like. So we hit resume. You can see there's our list in the form, or all of our names. And to add that title, simply go to this curly bracket here, right before the navigation view, closing curly bracket, have a period, navigation bar title, and we'll just enter our title, contacts. So just like that, you've written your first kind of SwiftUI code. Not very useful though, so there are some things we want to add. There is going to be the edit button, and there's also going to be the plus button that will bring up the add new contact screen. So it's pretty simple to get the edit button and kind of the add button. So we'll go ahead and do that now. We will have on navigation view dot navigation bar items. So to get the edit button and the add button, we're just going to add that here. It's pretty quick. So we'll do navigation bar items. And you'll see there's three options. You have leading, trailing, leading and trailing. This is the one we're going to use because we have two buttons. And you see it needs a view. So we're going to use, we get this one for free with SwiftUI, which is pretty cool. And you can see edit button, a button that toggles the edit mode for the current edit scope. So pretty cool. We don't have to implement our own editing functionality. It'll do it for us. And then trailing, this is the one where we're going to create our own button. So we'll do button, and we will give it an action, open up curly brace, and the action, we haven't created this yet. It'll be a state variable that's going to toggle whether or not the add new contact modal is showing, but we can write it out here. So is showing add contact dot toggle, and here we'll give our label, and our label is going to be image, system name, and we're going to use the plus. Now to make it so that SwiftUI is not mad at us, let's go ahead and add our state variable. So at state private var, I don't want to misspell this, so I'll just copy it here and paste, is showing add contact, and we'll set that to false. And like that, our errors should go away. And we can now see, once this preview loads again, that we're going to have two buttons. We're going to have our leading. Well, Canvas might not cooperate with me. If that's what happens to you as well, simply run it on a simulator. So Command R is the shortcut. You can also click the little caret button over here. But now you can see we have contacts, we have an edit button, which is not doing anything yet, and the plus button, which again, not doing anything because we haven't actually implemented our add button. And for those who are kind of new to SwiftUI, the state here is kind of like a source of truth for this variable. It's basically letting the view know what this should actually be showing. So it's going to redraw. When this gets changed to true, it will actually display our add contact view, and that's kind of how it knows to do that communication. So the next thing I want to do, we already have our basic structure of this. I know it doesn't look great right now, but we're going to go ahead and add our contact model so that we can actually start getting something a little more interesting than just the list of names. So go ahead, as a shortcut, do Command N, and you can see you get the templates for new files. Choose a Swift file, and go ahead and call this contact. And in contact, we're going to do two things. We're going to create our contact item, which is going to be the model that holds our properties of a contact. And then we're going to create a contact class that's actually going to hold the collection of contact items. So if that doesn't make sense to you yet, I promise it will once we start going through this. So first, struct contact item. And there's a few things we need this to do. Since we're going to be using our contact items in the for each, we're going to go ahead and conform to identifiable. So remember when we were over here in contact view, we had to give this ID. Well, if we have something conforming to identifiable, we don't need to even have this. We can get rid of it. And the way we do that is by ensuring that what we have is going to be unique. And we can use that with a UUID. So we'll do var ID equals UUID. And if you click on the command button and then you press, you can see the show quick help for UUID, and you can see it's a universally unique value. So pretty much guaranteed that it's always going to be unique. It works well with identifiable. And next we'll give our properties of what we want a contact item to have. So let name, that'll be a string. Let phone, this will be the phone number. We'll also make that a string. And lastly, the reminder. So the reminder, again, just kind of that little note to yourself of, oh yeah, I remember meeting this person. Next, we're actually going to do our class of contacts. So we'll do class contacts. Now this one is going to be an observable object. And if you haven't used SwiftUI before, observable object is basically a way for other views to know when this changes. So it's going to publish changes. And for us, when we're adding and deleting views, we want to notify, when we're adding and deleting contacts, we want to notify whatever view is using, like, hey, this contact got deleted, remove it from our form in the for each. So we have an observable object. And like I mentioned, we're going to be publishing something. So that's where the published keyword comes in. What is the thing that we actually want to broadcast to other views when it's changed? So var, we'll call it people. And this is going to be our array of contact items. All right. And with that, this is our basic model setup. We have our contact item and we have our contacts. So now if we go back into content view, instead of just using our list of our array of typed out names, we're going to modify this a little bit. So we're going to use an @observed object var contacts, and it will be contacts. Now, remember how I said there's going to be an observable object? Well, this is kind of the pairing you need to remember. If something's observable when you create it, on the other end, it's going to be observed. So this is where you want any of the changes on contacts to be observed, so you can make the proper changes when those things happen. So now that we've done this, we've kind of broken things here, but since we already did identifiable, you know that you can get rid of this. And now we get a little more information, so we're going to actually use it. We'll call a contact in, and text, we'll do contact.name. And then, oh, I forgot one thing. So when we're in contacts, we actually need to get to the value of where our contact item is. So in our case, it's going to be people. Sorry about that. So now once we have our contacts.people, now we're looking at an individual contact. Now we can say in text, look at the contact.name, and we'll make this a font, give it a title. And for the moment, that's all we're going to have. So nothing's going to really change when you look at the canvas. We're not really going to have anything showing simply because we haven't created any contacts yet. So let's go ahead and do that. And the next thing I want you to do is, again, Command N, or if you want to go to File, New, File, you'll get to this, and we want to go to, this time we're going to use a SwiftUI view. Hit Next, and we're going to call this Add Contact View. Hit Create, and now we have another SwiftUI view. So what we're going to do here, this is where we are actually going to be adding new contacts. So the thing that scrolled up when you saw it earlier, let me go ahead and run the simulator again so that you can see what we're kind of going for. When we have this running, when we hit the plus, this is our add new contact view. So if we look at it, very similar to the first, we have our navigation view. This is a section, and we're going to give it a header. So add name and phone number. We have two text fields. Again, one of them is that special text field that I'll show you how to implement. Another section, and then the final section with just a save contact. And lastly, the dismiss button at the top. So if you don't want to save anything, you can just dismiss that away. So let's go ahead and kind of start building that out. The first thing we want to do, that dismiss button, we get kind of some free functionality similar to the edit button with something called @environment. And we can use the .presentation mode. We'll say var presentation mode. I'll put a link to it in the description, but you can go ahead and read about the environment values. There's a lot of them, but presentation mode helps us actually dismiss a view. And again, kind of free functionality for us, so it's pretty great. The next thing I want to do, we're going to have some observed object of the contacts, because we'll be passing in contacts that we actually want to save when we're going to the add view. You'll get a little error here. Don't worry about that yet. And we're going to have 3 state variables to enter our contact's name, the phone number, as well as the reminder. So @state private var contact name. I'll set that to an empty string. @state private var contact phone, and @state private var contact reminder. Empty string. So now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and start building out some of the body. So first thing, be very similar to the last one, navigation view. Open that up, a form. Now here's a new one. We're going to be using sections. So section header, and this takes a text, and we're just going to say add name and phone number. And within our section, right now we're just going to have 2 text fields. So text field, second one here, and we'll say contact name with the text contact name. And our second one, this second one we're going to change when we actually implement the third-party library I was talking about. But for the moment, we'll just say number, and that will be with the text contact phone. Nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy. And now we'll do our second section. So now section, header, text, what to remember about your new contact. And please, if you're following along, if there's something you like better, go ahead and change it. Don't just follow what I'm typing in. Whatever makes sense to you, go for it. So we have 1 text field, our reminder text with our contact reminder here at the bottom. And finally, we are going to have that button. So button with the action, we're going to actually create a contact, when we hit save. So we need to create a new contact. That's going to be a contact item. And when you open this up, you're going to see you have options for ID, name phone reminder, as well as name phone reminder. Remember, we already set a UUID when we created it, so we gave that a default value. So you can just go ahead and do the name phone reminder. And on name, you're going to have the contact name, phone, contact phone, and reminder, contact reminder. Okay. After that, once this has been saved, now we can actually add it to our contacts. So contacts.people.append new contact. After that, this was the free functionality I was talking about. If we go to presentation mode, .wrapped value, .dismiss, this is actually going to dismiss the modal for us when we press save. So now let's add a label for our button. And we'll say text, save contact. There we go. Let's go ahead and give it a navigation title. So navigation bar title, and we'll say add new contact. And we'll give it the leading dismiss button. So if you don't want to save, you can just kind of get out of it. So navigation bar items. And again, we had the leading, trailing. For this one, we just have the dismiss button. So we'll do just the leading. And here we'll do button dismiss. And the action that we want that button to do is the presentation mode, wrap value, dot dismiss. Now, to actually get this to stop being mad at you, go ahead, now that we've created our observed object value, the preview is getting angry because we haven't actually conformed to that. We're missing the argument. So you can go ahead, click on the error, and you can see the insert contacts. Hit fix, just do contacts, and initialize it. So if you do that, we'll try again. No, it may be fully broken. So let's go ahead and try and run the simulator. Now, I don't know why Xcode does this, but occasionally when you hit the fix, it'll add the random comma. So if that happens to you, that's the error. And now you can see this is spinning, so it's actually working again. And there we go. We have our add new contact, the name and phone, and what to remember about your new contact. So let's go ahead and run this and kind of see what functionality we're at this point. So this will spin for a bit and build succeeded. And now let's click on our plus button. All right, we're not presenting yet. So let's go fix that. So if we go back to our contact view, or excuse me, our content view, not our contact, we actually need to get this to appear. So what we're gonna do, we already have our state variable that's gonna determine whether or not we're showing the add contact. Now we actually need to show a sheet. So after all of this, we can come down here, do .sheet, and we're gonna use the isPresented and content. So isPresented, we're using the is showing add contact, and then the content is just add contact view. And we're gonna pass in our contacts. So now, if we go ahead and run it again, now we should actually be getting something when we hit the plus button. So let's hit the plus, and here we go. We got our sheet showing up. So add new contact. We'll do Bob 111, just a test. Save our contact, and there you go. We got Bob. So far so good. This is working. And let's kind of make this a little nicer now. So we have our contact name, but we also have a number of other things. So let's not just use the contact name. We want to get the reminder as well as the phone number. And the way we can lay it out horizontally is through an H-stack. So let's do H-stack. I'll do a text, contact.reminder, and we'll do a caption style, make it a little smaller. And then to get those kind of separated from each other, we're going to use what's known as a spacer. So that'll take up the available space, push things to the edges. And then we'll use a text, contact.phone, do a font.caption, and this we wanted to make the foreground color blue. So there we go. And for both of these, we're going to embed them within a VStack. So if you go ahead and click and hold Command, click Text, you can do Embed in VStack. And a quick way to kind of reorganize code, if you haven't used it before in Xcode, you can highlight everything you want and then hold Command, Alt, and then use the brackets. So left bracket moves it up, right bracket will move it down. So there you go. We've now moved it into our place. And on the VStack, I want to give it some alignment. So I'm going to give it alignment.leading. Again, I encourage you kind of play around, test whatever things look good to you. So let's make sure this is actually running. And let's go ahead and build and run it on the simulator and see what it's like when we create a contact. So add another one, test 111, test, save our contact, and there you go. That's our formatting. We got the large title, little caption for the reminder, as well as the number. So we've got a lot of this working now. Let's go ahead and actually implement the third-party library that I was talking about to get the more interesting phone number formatting showing up. So the way you do that to actually get a third-party package through the Swift Package Manager is you come over here to File, click that, come down to Swift Packages, and then add package dependency. Now you can search directly, or if you already have the URL, you can use that. I'm just going to search. So the package we're going to use is called iPhoneNumberField. So if we search for that, you can see we have this iPhone number field by MojtabaHs. Sorry if I didn't get your owner name right, but if you actually click on this, we'll pull up the GitHub for it. So you can see all the details for iPhone number field, can show how you implement it, what it looks like, any kind of example, but that's what we'll walk through right now. So we select the one we want, hit next. So you can see at the time of my recording, this is 0.6.1. So we will hit next. And now the package product, iPhone number field, it's a library, and we're going to be adding it to our contacts target. So we hit finish. And now you can see iPhone number field has been added. So what are we going to do? Back in our add contact view, we're actually going to go ahead and implement the number field. And it's pretty simple. Simply, we'll take this one out, and we're going to do iPhone. First, we're going to import it. So come to the top and do import iPhone number field. So if you ever don't have autocomplete working and you're trying to use a library, check your import statements. That might be the issue. So iPhone number field, and there you go. Open it up. We can have a whole bunch of different things. We're just going to give it a blank and text. So blank, and the text is going to be the contact phone. We'll style this a little bit. We don't want the flag to be hidden, so we'll set that to false. And again, if you want to change any of these values, go ahead and check out that documentation. I'll link it in the description, and kind of play around with your different options. So flag selectable, make it true, and clear button mode. So this is when you're actually typing, a little X will appear within the text field that you can just clear it all immediately. So we'll do while editing. And then lastly, do we want to hide the prefix? And there you go. So now if we run this again, you can see when we add, we got our little flag showing up. So contact name, do John Chorus, do the phone number 888-817-5555. And now we've got our formatting. And a little reminder, this is me. Save our contact, and there we go. So now we have our contacts actually showing up when we create them. But right now, our edit button still doesn't do anything. So what do we want that to do? We want that to be able to delete our contacts. And we also, when we click, we want to be able to call somebody. So let's go ahead and implement that now. So if I stop the simulator, let's go back over to our content view. And in that one, we are going to implement our delete. So we're going to create a new function outside this curly brace, but before the last one, func remove contacts at offsets and index set. And what are we going to do? At contacts people dot remove at offsets. And we'll pass in our offsets and delete that. So there you go. Now we have a remove contacts option. And where are we actually going to use that? we're going to do it, there is a specific modifier for each. So if you've worked with SwiftUI a little bit, you might know there's an option to use a list. Well, the reason we're working with a for each is you can't use on delete on a list. So we're going to use our for each and dot on delete. Might be at the wrong level. Let's try down here. There we go. On delete. We're actually going to perform an action. So this, it does kind of all of this filler code for you. You can just delete that out. And we're going to do remove. I'm going to change the name to just remove contact instead of contacts. Delete that here. And everything should be good. So let's go ahead, run it one more time. Add a contact. John. And if I save the contact, now if I slide, look at that, I can actually delete them. So we've got our editing functioning working. We're able to delete our contacts. Now the last thing that I want to show you before we start getting into kind of saving and loading our contacts is actually the onTapGesture, actually sending something to your phone number, being able to call something. So this, I'm going to copy paste this. I already have the code for it. This is going to be a regular expression. So the reason for that, we're using kind of a different formatted phone number, but for what I'm going to show you, it doesn't really like having parentheses or dashes. So we need to remove that before we're able to actually dial a phone number. But first, we're going to do on tap gesture. And here, I'm just going to copy paste. I'll have this code available that I can share, and I'll have it in the description so you can see. But what we're basically doing, we're taking the trimmed phone number, so that'll be the contact.phone, and we're going to replace the occurrences of any of these characters with just a blank, so we're just going to get rid of them. And the options here, we're using a regular expression. If you don't know what regular expressions are, that's okay. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know too much about it. Just know it's going to remove all these characters. Next, we're getting a URL and from a string. So the way you can actually call a phone number is with this prefix of tel : / and then you pass in our trimmed phone number. And if that doesn't work, we'll just return out. But if it does, then we can actually open up that URL. And when you run it on a real device, it will actually bring up the little sheet to dial that phone number. On a simulator, it just doesn't do anything. It just returns out. So one more time, we can run, see that everything's still working, add a contact, do something random, save the contact. You can see still got things there, but if we go ahead and click, like I mentioned, nothing's going to happen. But let's go ahead for the last part of this project. Let's actually kind of save and load things. And the way we're going to do that is through user defaults. Typically, user defaults is used for, things the user sets, so maybe some settings, small information. I don't recommend using it for large data volumes, but to just give you an intro into user defaults, this is an okay use case for it. So the way we're going to do it is actually back in our contact. So if we go to contact, we are going to use a did set so that basically anytime this people value gets set, it will actually save it in user defaults. So we can do a computed property, make it computed, did set, and now we can do, this is where we're going to need to add to our contact item the codable conformance. And for those of you wondering what codable is, it's just a type alias for encoding and decoding. So if you want to encode data, you'll be able to actually write it to a file, write it to user defaults, and then decodable is the opposite. You want to get it from some location. So we'll call our let encoder equal JSON encoder. And for this first part, this is where we're going to save to user defaults. So if let, we'll call it encoded contact equal try encoder encode people. If this syntax is a little unfamiliar to you, we're basically saying that this might not work. So if let encoded contact equals try, this could fail, this process of encoding people. So if it fails, don't execute any of the code that I'm about to run in here. But if it does work, now we can actually use it. So user defaults .standard.set, we're going to do encoded contact. And you have to specify a key in user defaults for where things are actually going to be stored. And be careful here, because this is what's affectionately known as stringly typed, which is you're typing out strings. And if you get this wrong, it's going to break and it's not going to work as you expected. So now that we have that, now anytime our contacts object gets initialized, we want to just pull all of our contacts back. So we can do just a basic init, and we can say if let contacts equals user defaults .standard .data for key, and I just copy and pasted, so I'm going to paste that over contacts. Now we're going to decode our data. So let decoder equals JSON decoder. If let decoded contacts equals try decoder .decode. And what are we actually going to decode? Well, we're going to decode all of our contact items. So what is that? That's just an array of contact items from our data, from our contacts, excuse me. Now, if that works, we're going to set people to decoded contacts. So people equals decoded contacts, return, and we've ended it there. Now, if none of that worked, if all of those kind of failed, that means we just don't have any people. So let's just set that to an empty array. So now let's go ahead and test this. Go ahead and run it on the simulator. Let's go ahead and add a new contact. So me, John Chorus. And this is me. Save the contact. Now if we run the simulator again, you should actually see now that instead of clearing everything out, it's actually saving me. I'm still there. So this is going to persist your contacts from different app launches. So there you go, everybody. That kind of wraps it up. That does it. You now have an app that if you want to add new contacts, you're able to do that. Can edit, can swipe away to delete, and can actually call when you run it on a real device. And take this and experiment with it. Do different things, change up styling, change up kind of your inputs, and look at some other third-party libraries that you could implement. It's kind of fun to see what other people come up with and how you can use it in your own code. But that does it for this one. If you liked the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. I put out new videos every week. Thanks everybody. Catch you in the next one.